Yay Networks.
I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. All right, welcome y'all to our 5th episode in our Dream Bold Adventure Travel series. So I'm here with Scott Wanke.
Hello.
And we are going to be we're doing a little bit of a recap because we had 4 that we felt like we came out with a lot of quickly. So we had Dan Myers with us for 2 episodes talking about 1, his trip around the world, how he saved, how they did it. 2 was this Airstream travel, how they saved, how they did it, kind of what the limitations were. Then in the second one, he talked a lot about savings and strategies to start saving for this trip that we love. The third one, we had Travel with Lolly and her travel planning timeline. And then the 4th, we had Samantha Rosen talking about how to maximize points and credit card points and stuff like that. So if you've been listening to this, then you know that this is our 5th episode in our Dream Bold travel series. You can always go back and listen to the others. They're going to be here in your podcast library. You know that we are also doing this live by Zoom each week. So as you hear us talking, you're going to be like, okay, they keep referencing people adding in the chat through Zoom. You're not missing out on anything. You're not in the wrong place. There's 2 things happening simultaneously. We're presenting by Zoom and we're also recording for this podcast. So with that, let's go ahead and join the Zoom.
Thank you.
So what this episode is, it's kind of 2 parts. It's going to be a recap of where we are so far, what we've heard, what we've learned, and sort of how we can start to put this into practice. Then we're going to shift gears and we're going to say, okay, we are highly aware that right now a lot of restrictions are happening. Things are, becoming a little bit tighter. It's not as easy maybe to travel, or it might feel like there's more barriers. So Scott and I have put together a lot of ideas for travel and adventure that we can do in just a couple of hours radius of driving. So to start with that recap, our first episode was Dan Myers, and Dan is a friend of mine who had traveled the world for a year. They sold their house. They sold basically everything they had saved for years. He and his wife traveled the world for a year, came back, realized, okay, we want to do a little bit more of that. Kind of did the same thing, saved, flipped their house. And then instead of traveling the world, they bought an Airstream and traveled from East Coast all the way through to Alaska. So he shared about that. Now, Dan is a financial advisor, and his company is called Adventure Wealth. But what he shared in the second episode with us is these 3 main questions that he's asking to new clients and to clients. So when someone comes in and they're saying, like, I want to, start saving, or these things are important to me, he really kind of digs into their, I guess, the emotional side, the personal side, more than what people might normally expect a financial person to do.
And that was the guiding of those questions. And for me, it really hit home, and I hope it resonated to other people as well, that it made you think what's truly important. What do you want to get out of it? And kind of putting a time on it. Sometimes we go through life thinking we got time for everything, but it gets shorter and shorter. So he really helped us prioritize what's important. And hopefully travel was one of those things.
So a recap of his questions. The first one was, you have all the money you need, like basically forever. What are you going to do with it? So from now forward, how are you going to live your life? And that's where people's like big ideas. I'm going to take this cruise. I'm going to take these trips. I'm going to do all these things. The second one, though, is you've come back from your doctor and you only have 5 to 10 years to live. And they're going to be really healthy years, but you only have 5 or 10. And it isn't unlimited money. So it's sort of like, okay, with the life that you've got now and the capacity you have now, knowing that you have this limited time, how does that change? And then the third question is even deeper. Is that you've only got this 24-hour window. What are the things that you're going to do that you're going to prioritize? What we found is that that first scenario, big plans, the second and third, they start to get closer to home.
Yeah, the first one I thought was fun. And then as it drilled down, it made you realize what is truly important. What do you want to accomplish? And really, if it's just a few things, what do you want to see? What's the most important thing for you to get out and do and see?
What's cool is the conversations we had around that was a lot of those for that second and third question we can start doing now. So the example that Dan gave is that one of his clients was like, I would want to write a letter to my kids to share with them, how important they are, how they've impacted my life. And he said, well, have you written that letter? He said, no. Well, that's something we can do now. For me, I actually realized, my dad is 81 and we're super close. Like he was kind of the primary parent raising me growing up. And I talk to him every day. Well, he's only in Baton Rouge. I mean, he's an hour away. I talk to him all the time, but I don't always see him because there's just always things we have going on with work. So what I actually did is I started working into, okay, well, I can do half day on Fridays every other month or so, every 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then just go spend half a day there with him on Friday. And actually we did that last Friday, and we did a few little, we toured a facility, the Hanley salad dressing facility where they make it. They're going to be an Eat Fit partner, and our Eat Fit team was there, but I was like, Dad, would you want to go see that? It was just something that he wouldn't have normally done. I wouldn't have normally done, but that question kind of got me thinking. And so is that adventure travel? No, it's going to see my dad in Baton Rouge, but it's still getting ourselves out of the norm, getting ourselves out of that day in, day out, kind of where we feel that cycle of like that list and must do. It's this whole idea of this is kind of breaking ourselves out of that to say, let's break the monotony, let's break that rut, let's break the system, let's do things that are very personally rewarding to me.
And for me, and actually I stole this from someone else in the system, birthday parties for my son. You can spend a lot of money on a birthday party, but I decided that money's better spent on an experience, not the birthday. He may not remember that he had dinosaur eggs to break open on his birthday, but he may remember that we took a trip up to West Virginia and went rafting. So that was my take home. What's most important?
So to anybody who's tuning in right now, obviously on the podcast, as you're listening, you're not able to chime in with us, but to those on the Zoom, feel free to put into the chat or put into the Q&A of things that if those questions truly resonated with you and have changed how you're actually making decisions now, to me, that's huge. Again, a lot of us are like, okay, I want to come out of this and have my big plan, my big trip that when we can get back and we're traveling to Italy or any of these things, or I'm going to go for my first ski trip ever. That might be that big thing later, but we don't have to wait for that big thing later. We can start it now. So again, we kind of wanted to recap because it's been a lot fast as far as these guests that we've had, but those big takeaway questions from Dan of really starting to help us hone in on what's important. Not only how do we want to travel and what's that adventure look like for us, but just how do we want to live our life and what's important to us.
And once you decide what's important, how do you reach that? So he gave lots of little tips and tricks to whether it's saving money, making it accessible, but anything is truly possible if you set your mind to it. So it doesn't have to be as heavy as some amazing whirlwind trip, but just something you want to do and take one little bite at a time to make it possible.
Yeah, it was just our Friday in Baton Rouge was so memorable, and it stood out so much more than a normal Friday would have otherwise. So our next guest was Lolly of Travel with Lolly. And this is one that if you are intimidated by planning travel, if you're intimidated by maybe scheduling a big trip that you haven't done something of that capacity before, you're going to want to go back and listen to Travel with Lolly in the podcast notes and also in the Zoom. But in the podcast notes, you'll see we have the links to her travel planning timeline. And she starts you 1 year out. 10 to 12 months out, what do you need to do? And she walks you all the way through when you're dealing with your mail and how you're preparing your house before you're leaving or any of these things. So I thought it was interesting because Scott, you were out of town for that one, but I asked her, like, when she travels, does she use her own checklist? And she said, yes. Yeah.
That's good. It's the best sell.
I know. And she was like, she's not using it maybe so literally, but she said she always prints it out and sort of uses it as that kind of that final check to make sure she does have all her bases covered, all of her things organized. So that travel planning timeline is something that we'll be referring back to through the remainder of the 12-week episode that we're doing here with our adventure travel series, because that is sort of your toolkit that lets you start to put it into practice. And then this past week, we had our Samantha from the Points Guy about how to maximize points travel, credit cards, hotel miles, all that stuff.
I loved that one. I hope some people got something out of it. For me, I'm already using my credit card more, of course, with the caveat I'm paying it off every month, but getting those points she really taught me a lot and laid it out. And there's a lot of resources. Again, we'll recap that. But I hope that y'all took advantage of her advice and her tips, because these things add up. You can make a dream trip possible. The thing that I don't know if you remember her mentioning the flight that she took to Japan, which would normally be a $20,000 ticket, but because she was so strict and took care of her points, collected those, it was free. I mean, I couldn't even put it into words when she said that. And it was an amazing experience on top of going to a foreign country that she had the best time. She loved it. She even compared a little bit to New Orleans. But that flight was part of the experience. So it pays off to collect those points.
You know, we had a conversation with my nephew this past weekend, Friday night. We were at, having dinner with family, and our nephew is dating a girl who lives in Chicago. And he hasn't been a big traveler on his own. He's, mid-20s. Most of his travel so far had been with his parents. And so he got his first Southwest credit card because Southwest flies to Chicago. So he got his Southwest credit card. He's putting his purchases on that because he can redeem that for free flights to Chicago. So of course, I think I mentioned this before, I love that Southwest flies to Costa Rica. It's a 2-hour flight from Houston. So I'm like, if you're looking for somewhere really exotic, but also still close, a 2-hour Southwest flight from Houston to Costa Rica to me seems like the best deal. He's like, yeah, but I really want to go to Chicago. Oh. I'm like, well, bring her to Costa Rica with you on your miles. So, but he was going through and he was really getting into the nuts and bolts of what this credit card was. He had familiarized himself with what the rewards look like. He knew for each amount, each certain amount spent, what that meant in terms of miles. And so he really was already becoming very savvy with how to navigate what he's already spending that money on things. Now just doing it through that credit card, that money was already going out. Now he's doing it strategically so he gets these free flights.
Yeah, amazing. And not just flights, but hotel rooms, right. Anything that you think about with travel that can make it easier and more affordable. So I hope that y'all got something out of that.
So again, all of those you can listen to past podcasts, and Cam just put the link in our chat here if you're listening to the podcast and you know where to find them because they're going to be in your podcast library. So switching gears, and this is where we'd like to invite y'all who are on the Zoom right now to chime in if there's certain things that you feel passionately about that we're not sharing. But Scott and I were talking, and we were like, there's so much, and there's so much that can be done no matter where we live. There's so much that can be done within just a few hours radius from us. So he and I put together some of our favorites. We also kind of crowdsourced ideas from our teams, our friends who are like into exploring the world around us. So a lot of what we're going to be sharing is things that are in the greater New Orleans area around Baton Rouge. But we're going to do our best to talk about things that are throughout the scope of where Ochsner is, North Louisiana into Mississippi. But also, if someone is listening to this podcast from wherever you are, we want to, yes, these are going to be examples that are relevant to us here in New Orleans, but almost all of them are also going to be relevant in other cities as well. So the first one, I'm not familiar with this first one, Scott, that you put together.
And I love that you were not familiar with. So we have the NOLA Motor Speedway. Hopefully someone out here has heard about this, but this place is amazing. So you're thinking, yes, it's a racetrack, but there's so much more there. One of the things that they started, I think it's been about a year, is they have a bike night. So if you're a road biker, a cyclist, they open up their racing track to cyclists. So you can bring your team out, you can ride your bike on a real road, practice drafting, go as fast as you want, but there's no traffic. So imagine all those times you've been out in New Orleans, which is not always the best or most bike-friendly city. There's no stress about autos. You can just ride and race and draft and have a good time. So I thought that was great that they added that, but it is a speedway. So they have go-kart racing. They have educational series. They can teach you how to be a better driver, a better race driver. And then from time to time, I don't know when it's coming back with COVID, but they offered exotic car racing. And this was amazing. I can say firsthand because I did do this. I spent the money and did this. You get to drive, you get to pick. They have a Porsche, they have a Lamborghini, they have a Ferrari, they have a Nissan GTR, which is what I chose because it's the fastest. It's amazing. You get to race on a track with a professional driver sitting right next to you, yelling at you, slow down, speed up, which is very helpful because it's an expensive car. But when and where do you get the opportunity to drive in a Lamborghini on a racetrack? I'll tell you where, in New Orleans Motor Speedway.
Does the instructor have controls also?
Not at all.
Wow.
He has a booming voice. I can still hear him yelling me, slow down, you're coming up to a turn. But it's still one of my top 10 experiences that I've ever had. It was amazing. So it's an untapped resource. And even if you enjoy cars, it's always good to go to their website. They have random races from time to time. I've gone to see Porsche specific races with professional race car drivers out there. And then there's Miata races, which I know sounds odd, but Miatas are fast and they open up the track. So they have open track days. I just can't stress this enough that it is an untapped resource. Just go to the website and check it out. It's pretty amazing.
And there's different events there that can be appropriate for kids. There's different events there that can be maybe just you with your spouse, your partner. Adults only are going, or things that are going to be family focused. And I was looking in Baton Rouge, there's a state capital raceway also. And so that's just what we're seeing here in South Louisiana. There's others. So if that is something that you're like, oh, wow, I would like to do something like that, just Google to see if there's, maybe a speedway or raceway, see if there's that in your region. But again, things that are like the go-kart racing or bike night, that is stuff that might be for younger kids that wouldn't be just adults only. So things that, again, family friendly or like your spouse, your partner, that would just be like a really fun, very different than just like ordering in takeout on a Friday night. Right.
Very different. And they do have food there too. There's a question there. How fast did you go? So I'm glad.
I was wondering that too.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I got it up to 158 miles an hour. Now, this is a turning track, but that wasn't the exciting part. The exciting part was taking a turn at 112 miles per hour. Oh, amazing. Amazing. So highly recommend it.
I'm stunned that they do not have like controls on the instructor side of the car. That's a whole lot of trust.
I was too when I sat behind the driver's seat.
That's really, really cool. Some others, so you may say, not so much a car person. I really like doing more outdoors. Do you want to take it on the trails?
Sure. So mountain biking. So you may not, obviously down here we don't have mountains, but there are a few local mountain biking trails. There's one relatively close in the Spillway in Norco. It is, you always have to check. We'll put a website in there. You have to check whether or not it's open because it's subjective to when they open the Spillway and it gets pretty muddy. There's some other amazing trails. We talk a little bit about Baton Rouge. There's some great trails up there. And the good part is they're fun. They're trail rides. They're in the woods, but it's not a mountain. So it's not going to devastate you. It's just a fun beginner to mountain biking. And it's outdoors. It's not competitive. It's family friendly. I've been on this trail where there's kids that are 12, 13, 14, all the way to adults and older folks.
What about someone who's not super comfortable on a bike? If you're like, I hardly ride on the street, so it can seem really intimidating to do something like that.
Yes, and it probably should. So the best bet is, and I can speak to the one in Norco, there are a couple dirt roads. So you can ride your bike on a gravel dirt road and just be out in the open, fresh air. And there is a mountain biking trail just to the side of that. So that's where it's great for families, because if you do want to go on the single track trail, which is so much fun, blasting through the woods, and they have a few obstacles built in there as well, some jumps and some other things, or you could just drive on the gravel road and just be out and about. And it's out in the Spillway. It's beautiful. The ones up in Baton Rouge, especially Hooper Road and Comeet, they're a little more technical. So that you should be ready and make sure your bike is ready as well. So this is not something you would just take your run-of-the-mill townie bike out on. You would need a mountain bike. And just PSA, I have seen people with kickstands mountain biking. Please take the kickstand out. You really don't want that opening while you're on a trail. But again, it's outdoors. It's fun. It's accessible. It's easy. The whole family can go. Please bring helmets. And if outside of the New Orleans region, especially up in Alexandria, there's some amazing trails up there, and there's camping available. It's beautiful. Up in towards Shreveport, there's some more trails.
What would someone Google to try to find that if they're outside of Louisiana or wherever they are? And how common is it for there to be like nearby areas that would have mountain bikes for rent?
So that's the tough part down here. There's not a lot of places to rent bikes. I was looking through that and bikes that are appropriate for certain trails. But the best way to find the trails is you can just go to louisianatravel.com, and then they have a whole bike section where they rate the trails. They tell you how to get there. They map it out for you. And the best part, they give you whether it's beginner, intermediate, or a little more advanced.
And so same thing, looking for that, kind of doing a search like that for whatever state you're in. There's also a great website, outdoors.com.
Yes.
And same, you can find hiking there, but also mountain biking. And then there's so much reviews and about, they rate them as far as difficulty, but there's also a lot of user reviews. And then the limiting factor might be if you have that bike or not. And then on the note of trails, a lot of these, some of the same trails or different trails are hiking accessible too. So there's a lot, like we don't really think about hiking, I think, here in the South. Other places you go, and Scott is going to be leading an entire podcast on mountain travel, like skiing, hiking, all of this. But even here, like, again, we're talking Louisiana, but most states, there's some states that are incredibly flat, and you're going to be hard pressed to find any trails to truly hike. You might have more just like walking trails, but hiking, there's the Tunica Hills and the St. Francisville area. I'm flipping through my notes. Our dietitian Lauren sent Tunica Hills and then Clark's Creek in Mississippi. So it's about 2 hours away from New Orleans, but Clark's Creek has a lot of hikes with a bunch of little waterfalls. And so 2-hour drive, and it's going to put you somewhere else that feels completely different.
I moved here from New Mexico, and I was only here about a month, and someone I work with said, go to Tunica Falls, and fell in love with it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a great, easy, mellow hike. It's beautiful. I wouldn't recommend in the deep heat of the summer, but that's me.
You like moved here, you're like craving hiking probably. I can imagine there might have been a little complaining, I miss it. And they're like, wait, there's still hope.
Bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So the outdoor hiking, I mean, right now when we're having the heat advisories, but even if you're like, okay, in September or October would be amazing times to do this. And again, as you're listening from wherever you're listening from, checking around you, the website I mentioned also, like outdoors.com, you can put in a location and you're going to find any of those things. It can be hikes that you would be hiking. It can be trails that you would be cycling. And again, it'll rate it for you as far as best experience level and kind of give you different tips. One thing that I didn't know that our dietitian Lauren Hewlin was filling me in on is Fontainebleau State Park on the North Shore. They have a beach there, which who knew? And they have camping. And then for those who are interested, glamping.
I didn't know they had glamping.
Yes.
Oh, this is a game changer.
Yes. So, glamping, I think many people are familiar with that, but if not, you would pay a little bit of a premium, but it's sort of if especially I find within couples, there's the one person in a couple who really loves camping. They're the other that's like, I want hotel room. I want it nice. And so we have different ideas of how we want to travel. So glamping can be sort of that common ground to give that camper a little bit of that outdoorsy feel with still a little bit of the glam of glamping.
Absolutely. And they do have cabins up there as well. So not just the tent camping and the glamping, but they have cabins as well.
The same family that we were with Friday night, who's the nephew who's working his points to go to Chicago more, they mentioned that they had gone glamping. It was right around Yellowstone. They had gone to two. They had gone to they had gone to two different national parks, but they did glamping in one. I can't remember which one it was. And it wasn't inexpensive. And so that wasn't what they did for their entire stay, but they did one night. They said next time they want to do 2 nights. They said it was the coolest experience because, again, they're a family that sort of was like a blend of some went no part of camping, others want, they're really craving it. So glamping can be nice. And yes, here in the greater New Orleans area, right there on the North Shore.
Who knew?
Who knew? Parks, you cannot say enough. Like, you may think you know your park that's in your area. But I'm going to be out for next week. We're going to be taping next week's episode in advance. So y'all are still going to see it. It's going to be, our guest is going to be talking solo travel and also health insurance on travel, but we're recording in advance and our guest and Scott will be here live to answer any questions and kind of steer that ship. Where I'm going next week and why I'll be out is we're going to be in New York for about 5 days. And we're going for the US Open, but there's only so much tennis I really want to watch. And it's also not inexpensive to go to the US Open. So there's going to be 2 days of that. So I was already looking like, what are some of the best parks, outdoor spaces in New York? And there's a surprising number of them. And so that's, we think Manhattan is not a place that you're thinking you're going to do any types of trails or any of that stuff. And even in a place as, urban as that, there was so much. Here in New Orleans, City Park has all these hidden gems. So you may know one part of City Park that has that track that everyone kind of walks around and right around the lake. But there's all these hidden spots beyond that. So educate yourself about the parks around you.
Yeah, there's wooded hikes. I had thrown in there that you can always visit Grodat, which is an amazing place where they grow vegetables, and they have educational series teaching people about various foods. Have you done anything with Grodat?
We haven't. We've visited Grodat.
Okay.
Yeah, but we haven't partnered with them with Eat Fit.
Yeah, we hike by it probably every week when my son and I. And there's lots of other little hidden spots. There's places where you can rent canoes. Of course, we know the big paddle boards and the big lake, but there's lots of little canals and bayous through City Park that you're going to see things not everybody gets to see and experience. So highly recommend looking into that, taking advantage of it, because this is one of the biggest and most beautiful parks I've ever seen. And I've been able to live a few places. And I just can't stress enough that it just doesn't get taken advantage of.
The City Park kayaking are right there by Bayou St. John. It's like, I believe it's $22 for a single person kayak, $22 for 2 hours. And you pull up, they've got the kayaks there. You reserve them in advance just to make sure that they don't sell out. They play, like, you don't even, like, you sit down in the kayak and they push you into the water. So you're not having to navigate yourself. You're just having to paddle it once you're in there, which is fairly easy. You can go as quickly as you want, as slow as you want. The view from the bayou, it might be a road that you pass down all the time, but when you're looking at that view from the actual water, looking up, it's a totally different deal. And you're seeing things from a whole different perspective. And so that's something that we've actually done with our team before, kind of brought everybody out there. It's just a way that is, and again, we're talking New Orleans focused a lot, I know, but paddleboarding is something that if there's a body of water, Google to see if they have paddleboarding, because it doesn't have to be a big body of water. And paddleboarding, if it's relatively calm, you can find it. So that's something that, don't be afraid. Well, I was saying paddleboarding, but kayaking, one, and kayaking is really, I don't know technically how kayaking is different from canoeing, like those types of kayaks.
It structurally they're different.
Okay.
It's a little wobblier in the kayak.
But like you used to refer to a kayak as the one that people could turn over in it. And so it's not that. It's essentially, if you could canoe, you can do a kayak.
Yeah, it's called a sit on top kayak, so it's not enclosed.
Yes. So it's not intimidating at all, and you would really have to try to turn the thing over. So even if you're like, I'm not a great swimmer or whatever that is, it doesn't matter. Like, you'd really have to really try. I don't want to say that and jinx anybody here, but it's a really easy, and again, you can make it as challenging or as easy as you want with that. Paddleboarding is something that a lot of times when you do see kayaking, you'll also see paddleboarding. That's one where you can stand up and paddleboard, but that might feel a little intimidating. Your balance isn't so great. You can also just kneel and paddleboard. And if you fall, most of the time you can ask what's going to be around there. But kneeling and paddleboarding is another thing that you might be like, I don't think I'm ready for that. But those are just some things that you can just, again, if there's a body of water, do a quick search to see if there's paddleboarding or kayaking. And
depending, like you said, how the water is, up Lake Pontchartrain, they have paddleboarding right there, Lake Pontchartrain. So a little bit bigger body of water. There's some currents to navigate, but it's a blast. It really is. Can I expound a little bit on Lake Pontchartrain? And so another thing that I didn't even think about when I moved here was this is a sailing community. Lake Pontchartrain is known for having some great wind, great boats, and there are places that you can take sailing lessons. So if you've ever wondered, what is it like to sail? I want to be a sailor. Look at me, I'm sailing. There is a place up in Lake Pontchartrain that you can go to for lessons, both adults and children. And again, why not? It's right there. It's in your backyard.
No, I think that's a great point. And same thing, like we keep saying, like we're talking Lake Pontchartrain, we're talking the Bayou St. John and City Park with all the different amenities of it. That's going to apply to many, many areas across the country. So use what we're saying and kind of filter through and be like, oh, wait, there are sailing classes, or I could do paddleboard, or I could do kayaking here. And it doesn't have to be a big commitment. I have noticed a lot of people, though, when they do paddleboard a few times, they've ended up buying their own. I'm sorry, I keep saying paddleboard when I mean kayak.
Kayaking.
They've ended up buying their own kayak, which to me, there would be a barrier of getting that onto the car and out there. I'd rather pay the $22 and just it's right there and I don't have to finagle it. But these are things that, again, wherever you are, if there's a body of water, these are things that can be done. And there's something about just being in that open space without our technology in front of us, because you don't really want to have that in front of you. You don't want to drop your phone in the water. It makes us disconnect. So we don't have that technology. We're so you can't help but be connected with nature when you're doing any of these things that we're talking about too.
Yeah. Just being outside. It's therapeutic.
It's incredibly healing. And so as much as we're all right now on Zoom and looking at this. So if you're listening to this by podcast, and you're out for a movement and you've got it going, that's the healing powers of nature, I think, is whatever you're doing. You don't even have to put a lot of point of this whole part is we don't have to put a bunch of pressure on ourselves. We can easily just get ourselves outside, do something ordinary. It could just be your normal walk, but what's beyond that we can even do that would be a little bit different, kind of giving us a different memory. It's something that stands out a little bit more than the ordinary Friday or Saturday.
And then I kind of ask myself, what do I do when I have friends or family come visit? And of course, we go out to eat. It's New Orleans, of course. But one of our staples have been airboat rides and swamp tours. And I know we live here and we say to ourselves, we can do it anytime, but I highly recommend y'all take advantage of that. The airboat ride still makes me giggle. It's so much fun. It's unbelievable. And the slower pontoon boat swamp tours have been just as great. So I highly recommend you search those out. Think of it as something with the family. Think of it as something with visitors, or just, hey, you've never experienced it, go for it.
You've done them before?
Yes.
Did you see it alligators?
Yes, lots of alligators. And they fed them marshmallows, which my original degree was zoology. I don't think you should feed alligators marshmallows, but they tend to love them, so it brings them to the boat.
How long was it that you're out there? What time do you get out there? Is it a half day, whole day?
Wasn't a half day. I think we're about 2.5 hours. The airboat ride was way too quick. It was so much fun, and that was just under an hour. Okay.
And where is it that you're getting into, that you're going there to?
So I've been to some up north closer to Baton Rouge, and then I've done Delacroix. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yankee tongue. Delacroix. There we go.
Cool. Yeah. So Googling airboat rides or swamp tours. Brad has done that when they've had clerks that are working with them for the summer. They've taken them out on the airboat kind of swamp tours. And I've thought, man, that seems really cool. Margaret is telling us too that there's a great one in Luling that's just about 30 minutes away. So just like Scott said, when we think oh, what do I want to do when I have friends come in and visit? Why are we waiting? Because with right now, maybe we don't have a lot of people coming in to visit, but we can still do it on our own. One of the things that I included in the list too is fishing. And, you can go to a canal and fish if you're, but if you are a fisherman, fisherwoman, and you're really interested in it, and there's a canal by you, you probably would already be doing it. The only people I see doing it in the canal by our house are little kids. There's these 3 little kids that go often, and they carry their buckets and their fishing poles. And it reminds me of old school from maybe the 50s. But fishing tours, I think, where, especially if you're not familiar, it's something that you're not super comfortable with. Maybe it's not what you grew up doing, but you just want to experience it. There's so many different fishing tours, but there's a woman named Martha Spencer she actually used to be the meteorologist at WGNO, which is how I know her. And she was a meteorologist for years, and she left that profession, and she is now a guide. So she's an avid outdoor sportswoman. And she hunts, she fishes, she does all this, but she is a captain for one of the charter fishing tours. And so the name of it is Southern Catch Outfitters. So southerncatchoutfitters.com is the website for it. It's not inexpensive. It's about $2,400 for a full day, but that's for 6 people. So $400 a day, but that's everything. And that's they're bringing you out there. And they're catching this is the type of fishing tour where the fish they're catching are as big as we are. Huge. And so you can also look at Martha's social media. I think her handle is something like red fish. It's like freckled, something about freckles or redfish or something. Bum. I'm butchering that. But also if you put in Martha Spencer or Southern Catch Outfitters, you would see the links to her, and you would see these giant fish they're catching. So, and they're helping you reel it in. I mean, you're not going to be like reeling in this like giant thing on your own. But so again, a lot of people, that might be how they've grown up. It's what they're familiar with. They're like, why would I pay someone to take me on a fishing tour? I can do it on my own. But a lot of people, that's not the case. And so it may be something that would be, oh, let's get our family together, or let's get a group of friends or something like that. And again, it's an investment. It's that, $400 a person, but that's a full day. And then you also have all this fish that you've caught.
I was going to say dinner that night.
Yeah, you've got dinner for many, many nights after that. Another is, and if anybody has done any of these charter fishing tours, let me know. Why I say that about Martha too is, I don't know, I think that there's something too that's interesting about having a female captain. And I've seen on her social media that she actually, a lot of the groups that she takes out, it'll be a couple of moms, a couple of their daughters. And I think that that's really cool, because I think that feels a lot less maybe intimidating than a couple of moms and their daughters that are going to go out and they're not sure who their guide's going to be or what this is going to feel like. So knowing that this is a very capable woman, but still a woman, it sometimes can open it up to maybe people who wouldn't take that step out to do it. It might help up how comfortable we feel.
And speaking of fishing, so again, not from here. Fishing for me, I grew up fishing. It was a lot of casting with nothing on the hook. Spent hours and hours, never could. I went out on a boat with some friends down here, and I caught 13 fish in less than an hour. I've never seen anything like it. So if you've been fishing other places, thought, it's just fishing, you got to try it down here. It's amazing.
Yeah, great point.
And the fish fry afterwards was
you're
so
right.
good.
You've got so much that you're left with. And again, these huge fish, again, many of them like taller than Martha in the images. Still staying outside for a little bit. If Bay St. Louis, that's one that I feel like Bay St. Louis is becoming sort of an extension of New Orleans. But if you haven't been, it's just like, it's an hour and a half away. And it's a great town. They've got the beach. They've got great places to eat, outdoors there. I did try, my friend Amy was in town, and we were going to rent a kayak or a paddleboard. We were actually trying to rent paddle boards. And they said, yes, we have paddle boards. And so we paid for them. And we're about half a mile from the coast at a shop. And then I said, how do we get them out there? And he said, well, can you put them on top of your car? I'm like, well, I have a Jeep, maybe. So I go and I look back there, and they're giant compared to what the Jeep is. And it's just Amy and I, and we're not skilled in how do we put them up. And even if these people helped us put it up, how do we then get them off and then get them back up there to take it? So then the guy said, well, yeah, usually we have a guy, he like drives a van and he takes the kayaks down to the shore for you. I was like, well, he's not here today. No, I don't know where he is. It was that kind of a guy who was the clerk, And I said, I think I'm going to have to ask for a refund for today. I'm so sorry. Like, we're going to try to come back when the guy with the van is here. So even in Bay St. Louis, there is kayaking, there's paddleboarding, but make sure the guy with the van is there before you're turning over your credit card information. Others may be like, oh, that's a cinch. I could totally plop those up on your Jeep. I didn't feel comfortable with it. It was like we were looking, sizing it up, went back in and said, sorry. But Bay St. Louis or any of these coastal towns, again, wherever you are in the United States as you're listening to this, or you're talking with your friends, or you're maybe going to go visit your relatives, and maybe you're just going to visit your relatives and usually y'all just kind of stay in and do the same normal things. Take a look at where you're going to visit. It could be your mom, your aunt, whatever, your dad. What's in that 90-minute radius? I mean, pull it out. Like, actually go online and start to search around there and see what's there. Go to those websites, outdoors.com, any of these others, search within that areas, the travel websites, the travel forums, and kind of start to see what else can we do around here. I mentioned in New York, I had searched parks. We have a second leg of the same trip coming up that we're going to actually be in LA. I feel like it's very fancy. We're going from New York to LA.
It sounds very fancy.
Going to New York to see the U.S. Open. And again, just a few of those. My husband's going to the LSU game in Los Angeles. And so for me, I don't feel like I'm kind of a fair weather fan, I'll admit it. And so I like to go to be part of the the group and having the fun while we're going out there, but actually like going to the game, I'm like, I don't need to spend the money on a ticket and take that time for me. So I'm going to have a full day to myself on that Saturday. So same thing. I'm looking at, well, what are some of the outdoors things, the hiking and things like that I can do around LA? And so just searching some of those forums besides maybe what we think is the normal of just shopping or something like that to explore.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to throw a couple more in there that
Yes.
I forgot to add in our list. One of my most favorite things that I did, and I stopped doing it because I was going to have a son, flight lessons at Lakefront Airport. If you've never been to the Lakefront Airport, it is beautiful. The architecture is amazing. It's a wonderful little airport, but there are opportunities for you to take flight lessons. It is amazing. I had a great instructor, flew me around the dome. He let me take controls. He really knew how to get me hooked. Just circumstances changed, so I couldn't continue. And actually, one of my favorite sentences I've ever heard now, as we were up in the air the second time, I asked him if he had parachutes. And he said, yeah, I got one. Just love that guy. And so speaking of that, obviously we have skydiving. So not right here in the city, but up towards Slidell, there's a couple skydiving companies. So, it is the travel and adventure. So if you're thinking, I'd really like to jump out of a plane, you have the chance down here.
Where do they have you jumping out?
I don't know where the landing is in Slidell, but it's usually a large field. If you've ever been before,
Wow.
They have a very large landing area. The first time is usually it's tandem where you're connected to someone. So they're in control. You just scream and
You did it?
Oh yeah.
So I'm interested if anybody else who's tuning in on our on the Zoom right now, if you can put into the chat if you have driven a race car at a speedway, if you have learned to fly a plane and had somebody teach you how to fly a plane, if you've skydived or skydove, and what was the other that you said out there? This is wild, Scott. You've done all these things here.
Yeah,
that's really
lucky.
Cool. But that is adventure. So yes, it may not be the travel component of adventure travel, but that's adventure. And you may think, oh, when I go to that place, I want to skydive. Or when I go to that place, I want to do, what are those called? It's like the hang gliding,
Oh yeah, I've always wanted to do that.
But you may think, oh, when I take this trip to whatever beautiful place, I'll hang glide. But if something like that is a rush that is interesting to you, do it. And I'm sure it's not just in the greater New Orleans area that there is something like that. There's going to be, again, just doing a search for things like that to see.
Somebody put zip line. Margaret said zip lining.
Yes.
Do we have a zip lining course anywhere near here?
I
do not know. Well, we're going to find out.
Yes. And we did have a comment also, Scott, that you're building a resume for professional stuntman, which is 100% true.
No,
yes.
Professional bad decision making. That's more.
No, I think those are really great ideas though, because again, there is a cost associated with those, but it's usually for what that experience is. It's something that you're going to remember truly forever. And it's something that's just so different from our day in, day out. So we kind of made a last minute decision to talk about just like popping out and brainstorming some of these things with y'all, because for 12 weeks, we're talking about planning travel that maybe we've always kind of wanted to do, but didn't know how. But we were like, well, wait a second. Let's start talking about things that we can start doing right now. And these are things that, depending on like the temperature, you may say, well, I'm going to wait till September to do that, but you can still get on the books right now. There's just a lot that we can we don't have to wait for that big and special. We can still make these things very special, even though they might be very close to home. Do we have any others?
No, so this is not travel but if anyone has ever, do you know about the running of the bulls in New Orleans?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Have you done it?
Again. Oh yeah.
But is it really bulls?
No.
Okay,
no,
I didn't think so. Yeah.
It's roller derby girls with wiffle ball bats.
Yes.
I've been a very lucky person. I've been able to travel a lot. I have never seen anything so fun and so stupid in my entire life. And I mean, you can't help but to laugh, have a great time. So there are little things like that it's just, this city is unique and we have adventure and travel opportunities all around us. But even within the city, search beyond the bar or the restaurant. There are events here that are unlike any other. And the running of the bulls, we missed it. It's in July. It coincides with the running of bulls in Pamplona. But yes, getting chased by roller derby girls with wiffle ball bats through the city it's just amazing.
Did it happen this year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think like to that point, there are still things out there. There's a lot that is still happening. Some of it might be modified. Some of it might be, look a little bit different, but there's still so much that we can choose that is putting ourselves out there a little bit something different that's enriching. We're going to open it. If there's any last things that we haven't said that y'all have tried that you're like, okay, y'all didn't talk about this, let us know. We'll give it just another sec. We do have another vote for Scott as well as our professional stuntman to also have you be our official quote cruise director and let us know the fun events coming up. Yeah. Cruise director, camp director, whatever it is. Like, yes, like chief fun guy.
And we do want to read it. We said this in the beginning that we didn't search too far away from this Louisiana area. Someone had mentioned Gatlinburg. There's amazing places up in Arkansas. A day's drive can open up a plethora of opportunities. We were just trying to get something closer to home.
Yes, yeah, totally. And we had another comment on here that every time they take a trip, they go on a walking food tour. You learn about the area and the food and specialty drinks. I think that's something we didn't even talk about. Locally, if there's any kind of a tour, see what tours are around. So here in New Orleans, there's tons of different walking tours. There can be food tours. People think these are cheesy, but my husband loves the double-decker bus tours, the hop on, hop off buses. We haven't done it in New Orleans yet, but we're like, we want to. So even if you have one of those in your own town, it's okay to do it. But going to a new place, people are like, really? Y'all do those? Those seem so touristy. And they're sort of saying it with there's a lot of disdain about it. But for us, you're hearing facts or you're hearing information that we wouldn't know otherwise. It also kind of gives the lay of the land. And especially if it's our first time to a place and we're going to be there for a few days, we like to do that because it does sort of again, kind of gives us our bearings. So tours are definitely an excellent walking tours or the ones that they take you around. And then we also have another tip of when you're planning it, Googling just the top 10 things to do in that area. We've talked about TripAdvisor before. TripAdvisor is really great to say when you go to TripAdvisor, you can pick your location and then it's, what do you want to do? Is it top things to do? Is it top restaurants, top places to stay? So to that point, something like TripAdvisor is a great resource. And then you also see all the feedback from people who have done these things. I would say, though, don't wait until you're traveling to do TripAdvisor. You can use that for your own hometown or that maybe hour and a half radius that we're talking about. You can still do that even without traveling. So fantastic ideas, y'all.
Ooh, and the haunted tours, those are great. I absolutely love those. And this city is amazing with them. And the tour guides, they're good, especially here in New Orleans, because I think there's a competition for them. There are some amazing guides.
Yeah, so take advantage. Again, don't wait till you travel or don't wait till those friends come in to do things that are in your own town that maybe you don't do, but they're there. They're interesting. We can learn. We can experience. Why wait? Let's start them now. As we talked about, next week, we're going to have our guest on is Mimsy Ladner. She's talking solo travel, and she's actually traveling and living solo right now in Mexico. She's going to be sharing, and she's did South Korea for 7 years on her own, and she's young, and she's just got a lot of information she's going to be sharing with us about solo travel, big travel, and then small travel. I think a lot of times we're also looking for who's going to do this with me. And so I think it can be really good to see what are some of the things I can do on my own? But what she's also adding in, she's going to be adding in the layer about health insurance and travel, like travel health insurance, which she actually had to put into effect very recently in her trip. And so she has firsthand experience of that for years and especially very acutely. So she'll be sharing that with us because, again, if we're traveling solo, sometimes it can be a little unnerving. Well, what if something happens? So something like that health insurance for travel might be something to consider as well. So that's next week's topic. All right. Well, thanks, y'all, for spending the time with us. Thanks, Scott, for being my partner in crime on this.
Well, thank you, Molly, for leading this.
All right.
It's almost like we know what we're doing.
I know. We're getting there. So we've got the email that y'all can email the dreamteam@oxnard.org. We've got the links that we're putting into the chat here and the Zoom. And then for those listening through podcasts, we'll have links that we'll add into the episode notes. So thanks, y'all. And we look forward to seeing y'all next week.
Thank you so much.
As always, a huge thank you to Scott Wanke with Ochsner Health for joining me in this travel podcast series. I think it's a really cool thing that we get to do this, that this is part of this Dream Bold initiative that is encouraged and supportive by our Ochsner Health and Wellness Solutions. And I'm grateful that we can share it with all of you guys. As always, let me know how it goes. Let me know what you think as you're dreaming up your travel plans, as you're looking at the next adventure, whether it's near, whether it's far. Stay in touch. I would love to hear about it. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.